All right. So the project TinyKVT is like fairly young, but you've been doing clearly a really good job of getting bookings and you've been playing out it shows not just in LA, but like around the US and festivals. How did you get to that point? Is it from industry connections that you had previously through your professional work, or would you credit it all to aggressive networking? Like, how did you do it? What's the secret?
So even though I've worked in electronic music, or not electronic music, sorry, even though I've worked in scoring and music for over a decade, I had zero electronic connections when I started TinyKVT. Or rather, I only had the like two artists that I had done stuff under my name early on. But before that happened, I knew no one. I was just an avid fan. I was a candy kid even for a moment in time.
Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know anyone, but I had, I guess, a track record behind me from having worked with huge composers in a recognizable industry. That being said, I think I attribute a large part of starting to do not very well, but starting to pick up speed to being in LA, being in close proximity to agents, managers, other artists, being able to go to shows. I make it a point to not chase after large artists. I never want to be perceived as a clout chaser. And I also never want to work with somebody just based on their size to get myself ahead. I want to work with people that I like their music and I think resonate with the project. And if that ends up being a big artist, then that's great. But for the most part, I just like making music with my friends and people whose music I listen to. And I think because of that, I've made myself a really good circle of people in the scene here. But I do make a conscious effort to go to a lot of shows. And I take breaks here and there, but I love going to shows. I love seeing what other people are doing. I love meeting new people. Even though I have social anxiety, I force myself to push through it.
Mhm.
Because inevitably I do like talking with people and working with new people. And I think just from being around and then producing what I believe is like quality music, I feel like I've built more of a following of producers and industry people than I have of fans. And I feel like it's normally the other way around. You start building a fan base and then the industry catches on.
Yeah.
I think I've done it the opposite way. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
It seems easier to go that way than to go the other way. Because if you have connections, you can get put in front of more people who you could turn to fans.
Yeah, I think I've just been relentless in going after what I want. I believe in the project. I believe in myself, not all the time, but sometimes. And I try to represent myself in a professional light and connect with people that I resonate with. And it seems to be serving me well at this point. But I did not have any previous connections in electronic music at all. The only artist that I actually knew in electronic music was Kill the Noise, strictly from another friend. But he it has I've never worked with Jake. We've never done anything together, and he's never introduced me to anyone. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. It's just like it wasn't like a
A backdoor.
yeah, yeah. I just have been working my fucking ass off. And thankfully, it gained the attention of Deadbeats and some few other people. So it's been good. And I'm just hoping that like I can keep building that momentum. And I got to play EDC last year. But I was booked by a label that was running a takeover on a car. I was not booked with Insomniac directly. And Insomniac is obviously the biggest EDM, event thrower in the US. And they have not booked me yet. So I'm waiting to like like, hi Insomniac, I'm here, please book me and get on that festival train. But luckily Excision's team took notice at Lost Lands and Deadbeats. So I'm really lucky. And then a couple of smaller artists have brought me onto their shows as support that are friends. And at the moment, because I work in music full time, I'm not trying to do like 100 shows in a year. I like doing, if I could do a show every couple months or a couple shows, like for right now, I think that'd be a really good way to build a fan base. I would love to play more festivals because I have such a good time at festivals. personally. And I love the production that they bring and the amount of people that they bring that you can showcase yourself to. You know, we'll see what happens. I had like 3 shows in June, which is crazy for me, and I was like, "This is enough." Like, it's like, "I'm good. I've reached the max." You know, maybe eventually I'll get to that point where I can do like a show every night, and I admire people that are able to survive that. I think it'll be a build to that. But, you know, there are artists that are bigger artists that don't do the crazy insane. Someone told me that like Sudden Death does like 300 shows a year or something, and that seems like near insanity. And I'm sorry if there are people watching this, like agents that are like, yeah, you should want to do that. I don't want to do that. I straight up don't. But I would like to play more shows and start curating that kind of like live show event that I was talking about that can really reach a specific audience.
So you would credit it mostly to just getting out there, like putting in the footwork, talking to people, going to shows, introducing yourself.
Yeah, and I don't
And
know, like maybe I'm a nice person.
yeah.
I like to consider myself a nice person. I don't know, I can be an asshole sometimes, but like I think I'm okay to be around and like I'm not like a fuck up and I like to have fun and I just enjoy going to shows to support my friends. I think it's really important to support other artists
Mhm.
because we're all like doing this crazy thing and it's really, really fucking hard. And I don't think the general public realizes that when you're a small artist, we're not making any money. Every cent that I make gets put back into my shows, or I just straight up lose money. Flights are insanely expensive. Usually, when you're an artist my size, you're lucky if your hotel gets covered in your package. So, yeah, it's a struggle. It's like you have artists that are here and then artists that are all the way up here, and there's very little in this in between moment. But I'm just gonna keep pushing and try to reach the people that I think will resonate with the project and keep hustling my ass off. Again, I think proximity is very helpful. The being in Los Angeles, every artist comes through here, tons of managers and label heads, and they're all kind of here or come through here or know people here. So that is very helpful, and I recognize that. But yeah, I just gotta fucking keep pounding the pavement and hope that it pays off eventually.
So you would recommend moving to LA?
I have grown to love Los Angeles, and everybody likes to shit on LA.
Mm,
And I get it because the first 2 years of living here, I hated it. I hated it.
mm,
I was in a bad crowd of people. I was in the party scene because I didn't know anyone. I moved out here with like knowing hardly anybody. I dropped out of college before the rest of the people that I went to college moved out here. So I knew like 2 people. And the people that I knew were actors because I was a kid performer. So I was like partying with like Disney and Nickelodeon kids.
hell
It's
yeah.
like that was who I knew. Like I'd go to parties with like where Miley Cyrus was. And by the way, I love Miley Cyrus now, but like this was like, you know, like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I just got like sucked into the like this revolving club scene and it was awful and it was so superficial and I just hated LA. Then once I got more footing in my career and found my people and really closed off my circle, I learned to really love it. And LA can be, I tell people it's the worst place to visit and like the best place to live because you can really make it whatever you want to be. But, you know, for small struggling artists, it's a very expensive city. So you know, there's a lot of people here and it will definitely do you favors by just being in close proximity to things, but you know, there's pros and cons with everything.
Interesting. Last question, and then we can actually wrap it up. Do you think well, you're talking about doing 300 shows, or touring extensively, which is what I guess what a lot of artists do when they're kind of in the come up phase. They start to gain momentum and try to put themselves in front of as many people as possible. Do you think you would leave behind or at least step back from your current professional work doing scoring and composition to pursue TinyKVT if it started to pop off?
That is the number one question that people ask me, and my answer is always, I will never stop scoring. They are equal passions of mine at this point. Even though TinyKVT started as a hobby, it quickly became not a hobby, and I'm so grateful for that. The reality is that financially right now, scoring is how I support the other project. But even if that wasn't the case, would you know if one is busier than the other, of course you're going to lean into the one that's busier, but will I ever stop scoring? It's I you know, unless I become Marshmallow.
Yeah.
I don't foresee it happening. Like If that ever happened, then like fuck yeah, because I love both things. But like I think there is a world where they both serve each other.
Mhm.
You know, I'm gonna point to like Riot Games as like a big bridge for like those two genres. Like Riot has tapped into this thing where they're bringing in so many producers to do songs and collaborate on scores with their composers, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. The reason I got hired for Fortnite was because I had experience in making cyberpunk mid-tempo music, and they needed somebody that understood that genre that could apply it to score. So like I think they feed into each other, and I want to explore that. I want to explore the crossover more, honestly. And there are a lot of artists that don't tour as much because they're making money through sync. I think the reality of why people tour so heavy, besides trying to build a fan base, is they're making far more money from touring than streaming. You don't make anything from streaming, but merch and touring is where your money is. So I think that's why people are hitting the pavement so hard, especially large artists. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it seems like to me. But I think the fastest way to grow a fan base is by being in front of people. And I would personally love to just specifically do more festival dates. I love
Okay.
festivals. I've been going to them forever. I discovered so many artists by just wandering around festivals.